Welcome back to the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Here on Wednesday, February 20th, 2019. Thank you for tuning in to SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You guys know you can find this one there. Also, quick note, this is a video interview I did with Low-Key. So if you're not on YouTube right now, go down in the description of whatever platform you are on, click on that link, and go watch the video version of this. You can still just listen to it, but I highly recommend the video. And today, I have on Low-Key, who is a somewhat new EDM producer. I don't really like to say brand new because he's been performing with shows. He's performed with people like Steve Aoki, Party Favor, Marshmello, really big names in that genre, but he just started out releasing his own music under this name, Low-Key. He had his first ever track released earlier this year in 2019, and he has a brand new one coming out this Friday, February 22nd. So I talked to him about what it's like to be releasing music finally instead of just performing, how he's going to develop as an artist, why he picked the name Low-Key, and so much more. I had a really fun time talking with him. Here's my interview with Low-Key. Sweet. All right, so just kind of want to start this off. What have you been working on recently?
So I just got my EP done not too long ago. I've been doing a lot of singles. Just started a brand new Spanish house guitar track, which I'm really excited about. So I've been just kind of focusing on getting a lot of content created. But as of most recent, it's just my new Spanish house guitar song.
Gotcha. Yeah. Is this the release you have coming on the 22nd?
So the 22nd is Dance the Devil. It's actually not the new song I've been working on. This song is a little bit more melodic house. It has a saxophone in it, very vocal-centric, but it's kind of just off the vibe of what I've been doing. A lot of my music is very vocal-centric. I like to sample a lot of instruments, more so live instruments. So it's just pretty much exactly what I did with my last track, just with a saxist this time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to say, I really enjoyed that first single you had to come under the name. I think it was Ain't Coming Back. How did that track come about?
So I'm glad you like it. I got that song started back in June of 2018. We got just the instrumental done, and then I found this vocalist who I can't disclose who it is, but I ended up getting interviewed by her for about 90 minutes, and she's like, "What do you want to do with the song? What's your idea?" And initially, when I created the song, it was just there's a lot of things happening, both in my home and romantic life, where I was like, okay, I want to focus some energy into the song. So she said, okay, well, tell me about it. So from that single question stemmed a 90-minute conversation of her just grilling me on, pretty much the last 8 years of my life. And she just not only used what I went through, but kind of was it was a little bit linear with what she went through as well. So it was a little mixture of both of those. So she laid down a really cool lyric on that, and I was pretty excited about the actual outcome of it. But it's been performing actually rather well. Yeah, so I'm excited to see it. We might actually hit 100K by midnight tonight. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really liked the vocals on that. I really liked how the track. It just was a really nice one. I mean, grilled you for 90 minutes. Maybe I should have asked her for some questions, honestly.
Right? It was. I've never had that experience before, so it was very interesting, but one I'll always remember.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, usually for one track, maybe you wouldn't think there was that much going into it, but it really just comes to show you when you put that much effort into a track, you get a lot more across.
Yeah, and honestly, I never thought, especially with a vocalist, would I be grilled that much. Maybe by management, maybe by someone like A&R, not by a featured artist.
Oh, I can see you again.
There we go.
All right, wait, you're frozen real quick. Okay, now it's coming back. All right. All good. Yeah, no problem. Cool. So, yeah, just kind of cut off right there. You're talking about you're getting grilled by the management, not a featured vocalist. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, so it's just you don't expect it from a vocalist or a featured artist to be asking you a lot of in-depth questions about your life. You'd expect someone like a manager or A&R or someone at a label to be kind of grilling you more so than who you're featuring on your track.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you have an EP. You have that coming out this year with a March kind of April time frame right now. Can you just tell me a little bit about this project?
Yeah, so the EP is called More to Life. It's basically a journey that goes from it's a 3-track EP. So the first track is it's about kind of this idea that you're focused on money and a lot of tangible objects, not so much the intangible. But it pretty much takes a listener through this journey that I went through of first, a lot of things that I thought was success was money or having like that watch or the fancy car. And then realizing, okay, maybe it's not, but you're not fully invested in that idea yet. So the second song goes into like, okay, it's called Maybe. Literally the song's called Maybe. So you're the in-between between, okay, is it actually about money or is it maybe about like the intangibles like love and having a stable relationship or your emotions in check or whatever it might be. So Maybe is the second track. The third track's called High Note, which is coming to the realization that, success can be measured through monetary things or tangible objects, but the intangible stuff, love, relationships, are so much more important, at least, with your soul and mentally, than having, the car or the watch. So it's just pretty much that entire journey. And one of the things that I wanted to focus on, the cover art for each song also is like almost like a comic book. So there's a different scene in each of the cover arts that also kind of go linear with the story and the journey.
Wow, I mean that's definitely a lot going in there into one EP. I kind of want to touch on that comic book idea a little bit.
Sure.
Where did you get that idea from?
Honestly, it just was – initially I was like, okay, well, I want to do something with this EP where it's not just 3 random tracks, right? I wanted it to be something a little bit more special. And a lot of what I do is all my songs come from the heart or experiences or something I've done in the past. So when I said, okay, well, I want to have an EP, I want to tell a journey of a crazy experience or something that was, dear to me, which was, was that journey itself. But when I finally got to getting cover art done, the guy's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, honestly, I think that because each song has this message behind it, that we should still do that and have a linear version with the cover art. And that way, everything is going in the same direction and there's nothing kind of weird about it. But I think even doing that, it just kind of separates it and it makes it more, diverse or eccentric, if you will. Not a lot of people like to do like stuff like that. And I think it's kind of cool just to kind of make it more personal.
Yeah, that's why I really focused on it when you said it, is because I've never really kind of heard about it in that kind of way with the different, even the different cover arts for each song, almost telling a story in it as well. So
yeah.
I think it's a cool thing you can do now with the way like technology, like other platforms like SoundCloud, where it allows you to have a single cover art for each song.
Right.
It maximizes it in a way that I've never seen any other artists do that.
Yeah, it's just a way to like differentiate yourself, because if you think about it, this space that I'm operating in it's so saturated. Every day there's a new producer, new DJ. There's new EPs, new singles being, put out every single day. So there's just another way to kind of differentiate my brand versus everybody else and whoever else is in the arena of pop and house.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch on this. I mean, when you're talking about your music, you're just there's so much thought being put into each and every song and each and every EP, down to the cover art. What's the normal process when you create a song? How long does that usually take? Is it a different for each song, or is it just usually a similar length? It
depends. Some tracks get pumped out in a week. Some tracks take 3 months. Ain't Coming Back was a track that took about 5 months to go from start to finish. For some of the recent songs, it starts, just depends if I'm in a mood. A lot of my music, basically when I work my primary job, I listen to Spotify 9 hours a day. And I find so much new music, and I find a lot of different vibes that aren't really big or very small artists. So I wouldn't say that I use them as a reference, but they definitely influence some of the ways I begin my music, whether it be just like a different chord progression or if I'm hearing a synth in my head. But overall, it just depends on kind of what I'm trying to tell with my music. If there's going to be multiple layers of different instruments, if I'm going to have a vocalist on it, there's kind of a lot of different strategies that kind of be implemented almost, but it just depends. Mm-hmm. With the Spanish guitar track, for example, there's not a vocalist on it. It's just 2 instrumentalists and me laying the beat down. So I'm sure that'll go by really quick versus having to, get multiple stems from vocalists and mix it and master it and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Some songs, I mean, especially when you get grilled for 90 minutes in some instances,
exactly.
they take longer.
Sure.
You mentioned that right there. You listen to Spotify for hours on end, listening to different kind of different kind of artists, maybe not as popular. So how wide of an array would you say like your influences are, I guess, when it comes to making music?
Oh my gosh, it's all over the spectrum, because there's days where I'm feeling hip hop, there's days I'm feeling R&B, there's days I'm feeling like sax Spanish house. Like I'll literally go on Spotify and type in like sax house and just like explore for hours and find artists that are just absolutely so tiny, but they're incredible. I'd say it's everything. I love a lot of instruments. Live instruments are my thing. That's why a lot of my music, a majority of it, you'll hear live instruments in it. So I'd say, I pull a lot from Disclosure. They were a huge influence on me. That was probably one of my favorite duos since I was younger. Because I know Caracol came out in like 2014, 2015. So I would say Disclosure, Big Gigantic, I'm obsessed with as well. Between those two, I mean, you're making up for what the synths are and my live instrumentation. So I'd say those two are probably the biggest.
Okay, definitely, yeah. And right there, you mentioning live instrumentation. I think that's just so unique, especially in a genre such as EDM, something along that line. Just literally has electronic in its title, using the live instrumentation, and that might be another way for you to kind of differentiate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people get lost with how digital music is right now. And even just sampling one live instrument just brings forth more, human interaction with it than just what you're making on your computer. I think that's important. And I know a lot of artists now, they're not losing the personal touch to it, but I think just even implementing one sample that's a live recording will just shift you that much further, at least with how real it can be.
Mm-hmm. Of course, yeah. I mean, whether I'm a huge hip hop fan, that's the genre I listen to most, and I can always tell when there's that live instrument in that kind of beat or in that kind of song. You see a lot of the great artists, in hip hop and other genres, you incorporate that live instrumentation because it just has a different sound and feel than the digital way.
Absolutely. So out of the hip hop artists that you listen to, what is it or who is it that you like the most, and what is it that they're doing?
Oh wow! To flip the interview back on me. Just because you mentioned the sax and live instrumentation, the one guy that just makes me think of course, is Kendrick Lamar, To Pimp a Butterfly, with all of that saxophone incorporation, with all of that jazz in there, and just the way that album just comes alive when you listen to it.
Sure. No, I agree. Kendrick is amazing. He's an incredible artist, very talented. He'll definitely go down as one of the greats, if not already.
Yeah. I personally think he's one of my top ones. But there's a great example, I think, of what you can see is where that differentiates him. That shows that he's taking that extra effort and really not just making maybe a hip hop beat or, in your case, maybe an EDM beat, but a full track and song.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So, just kind of want to also move on. So oh crap, I lost my place. Sorry about that. So I wanted to transition a little bit more to your performing. We're talking a lot about your recorded music. I saw you perform with people such as Marshmello, Steve Aoki, Party Favor. List goes on. I saw that big list. What's it like performing with those big names? What have you learned from that?
It's interesting. Well, what I learned from that is they're all human too. I mean, even though they're all super famous, they're probably some of the most down to earth people I've ever met. But I mean, I have probably 20 seconds to talk to them, even when I'm direct support or whatever it might be. And every time somehow it comes up, they're like, hey, just stay persistent. As long as you're persistent in this, you don't give up. And even if you can't, if your music sucks, just finish it. Just getting the song completed versus sitting on a track 50% down is so important. But I mean, one of the things with my performances is I went under a different moniker before Low Key. And that's kind of what made Low Key now, is because I was doing a lot of bass house performances and a lot of just aggressive music. And I kind of shifted gears, and this is all in college. So I shifted gears in college to kind of a more relaxed space, and mentally I was more relaxed. And I found a bunch of different influences. Like I said, Big Gigantic and Disclosure, that was okay, well, I'm going to try to play this out live a little bit. And I did, and people were very receptive to it. It was a big kind of change of pace for them sometimes because, back a couple years ago and even now, bass house was extremely, prevalent. It's still very big right now as it is, but there's obviously music industry is very cyclical, and it's changing every single day. So I think, from performing with these big artists, it was just hey, don't lose your persistency just because things aren't going your way, and stay true to the music that you love. For me, I grew up playing piano, and I played trumpet a little bit as a kid, and I was never good at it, given, and steel drums. So I kind of forgot that when I was a kid. I really liked live instruments and more melodic stuff. So now it kind of makes sense why I'm going back to melodic music, is because I loved it when I was a kid. So tangent over, but that's to make a short answer a long one.
No problem. I mean, I was literally going to mention that because I saw you had, changed your moniker to low key, and it makes sense now that if you went from more aggressive tones to a relaxed one. Low key sounds like the perfect kind of name.
There's a lot behind low key. There's a huge story behind it, but we can get into that a little bit later. But yeah, it was cool because my first moniker was Alexander, and I got to leverage that in college. I got to play with Knife Party and Marshmallow and all the artists that you named off. So it was just a really cool experience. I think it definitely shaped who I am as an artist now, and obviously gave me the experience of what it was to be on a big stage with a ton of faces looking at you. Because I don't know about you, but I can't do like public speaking, but I can stand on a stage with hundreds of people looking at me, like waiting for me to play something. It's like the weirdest thing ever. I can't even describe it to people sometimes.
That is a weird kind of one, and I know that EDM's such a different one too because it's not like rapping or it's not like
Right.
playing an instrument. You're kind of doing your own thing. I mean that's
Sure.
I find public speaking difficult at certain times, but for
Yeah.
me that hundreds of people looking at me to try to play something, that would be just terrifying.
It's like almost my adrenaline just as soon as I walk on that stage, it just kicks in so quickly, and I'm like, okay, well I know what I'm here to do. I can't screw up. I mean, given I have, but you've worked your butt off to get to that point to be able to share a stage with a huge name like that. Like you're there for a reason, So it's been a really cool experience nonetheless.
Exactly. So, in this name switch, I just get really interested when artists ever do this.
Mm-hmm.
What was that moment that kind of you decided, okay, I have to switch my name?
So, okay, this is a little bit of a longer story. I went to production school in 2016 at a school called Garnish. It was in LA. And this was when I was still going under Alexander. I knew that, Alexander is my middle name, so there wasn't a whole lot of creativity behind that. It was just more so I needed a name in that moment to go under, except for my full name. So I knew that I wasn't going to release music under Alexander. But there was a time I was sitting at my house. I was a junior in college, and my buddy and I were just talking about, Gesaffelstein and how he retired and like his minimalism and stuff, and just a very interesting conversation about how, minimalistic music actually goes a long way. And we're like, oh, like, I love low key music. And it was like that phrase low key music is like kind of like how it started. And we both kind of laughed and we're like, okay. And I was like, what if I name myself low key? Totally jokingly. Like I looked up low key and like it just didn't seem feasible at the time. But then a whole different array of things happened where low key is a Norse god. He's the god of trickery, right? Mm-hmm. In my actual logo is a half smiling face and a half frowning face. The idea is, at least from what I had to go through in life, was that, there's a lot of chaos. Like my life was utter chaos it still is for a very long time. But I learned how to just like pretend and have this facade to everyone else. Everything was perfect in life. There's nothing to worry about. But internally, things were like totally falling apart. But it was just me tricking everybody that, hey, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. And that's where the happy face, the half smiling, half sad face comes into play. But also low-key, the god of trickery comes into play is that, hey, like, I'm tricking people that I'm fine, but really, like, internally, I'm just trying to get through it day by day. So that's kind of where the actual name low-key came from. And I was like, okay, well, now that this is all tying together kind of interestingly, and I want to make music that's about my life, I think I kind of have to stick with this name. Mm-hmm. So then everything just kind of fell together, and now we're here. Now you're interviewing me.
Yeah, I mean that's a really crazy story. I think that's awesome how it. Yeah. I mean, I'm bringing in Norse mythology in order to also describe your name, and that's such a poignant and such a detailed, I guess, description of your vision as an artist.
It is, and it's interesting because if you want to be a super fan, you want to look into the actual brand. There's a creator who's like, oh, I found low key on SoundCloud. Oh, he has a cool logo. Like that can be it too. Like it just depends on how deep you want to get into like the actual brand and the story behind it. And I think just having an opportunity with an artist is like, if you really want to get to know them, there's an opportunity to really get to know me.
Exactly, and I think that's as an interviewer, of course, I love it when artists have that kind of next level. But even as a fan, I mean, I when there's an artist I fall in love with, I listen to a lot of their tracks. I'll look up an interview with them, or I'll look up their Wikipedia page, or I'll look up something to be like, oh, that's why they mentioned so and so in their song. Everything just kind of connects. Everything makes more sense as a fan. You get more involved as a fan.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I wanted with this project was people to confide in this, because I know that, I work in the mental health space right now for my primary job. So like I know that there's just a lot of people struggling out there, and there's people who don't want to go and talk to people about stuff. So I want to kind of have this, and I was one of them. I was always to myself. I kind of want this project to be a resource for people or those individuals who are struggling with whatever it might be. And, you know, if they find the same story that I am telling in my music, that they can confide in this project almost. And that's a lot of the reason why I want to tell all these different stories of what's happened in my life, because I want to turn ugly things beautiful. And that's something I've always said is like, hey, I want to turn an ugly situation beautiful and tell it in a beautiful way. And that's kind of what you're going to find in all the lyrics, the deep underlying meanings of my music, is that there's always something underlying in there. If you want to explore it, you want to know them on a personal level, it's there. If not, you want to just enjoy it because it has a cool beat or the synth sounds good, you can do that too. But there's just that option to get to know me on a personal level that I want to offer fans.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that kind of brings me to something that I saw on your SoundCloud. I saw, doing some research about you. I don't know if you mind me asking, but you did mention that, growing up there definitely was some kind of, mental health issues there. And I just kind of want to, can you describe to me a little bit about that? I was kind of confused a little bit reading about that, and just maybe how that has impacted your music.
My parents got divorced when I was 2.5. My mom was married shortly thereafter to my stepdad, who's been pretty much my dad up until this moment of 20 plus years. But after that divorce, it was really aggressive, and both my parents remained in the same city, so it was a split custody kind of thing. But since they didn't really talk to each other, I was the pawn between them. If they wanted to be in a bad mood and take it out on another individual, I was the way they did it. I was like the messenger almost. But as I was the messenger, it was very damaging to me because I would be punished for things I had absolutely no direct relation to. And that was all the way up until I became financially independent. Even in college, my own father would just do things that was not necessarily right. Like, there's a lot of different things. We'll leave it at that. But yeah. I don't think it's fair to any child to be put through hell and back because of a decision that you and, your ex-husband or ex-wife made. I think that for me, and I am thankful for it because it made me into who I am today, but between just having to be the pawn between two, divorcees, it was a little bit difficult. And every single day, it was just a battle of having to not want to cry or like not want to run away or just like kind of pull up your bootstraps as like a 6 or 7 year old kid and not really understand what's happening in the real world, because you really don't have any sense of it. You're just still a kid, but you're almost forced into maturity. Mm-hmm. So I became an old soul at a very young age because of it.
Gotcha. I mean, that's thank you so much for talking about that.
No, of course.
Definitely. I mean, it's gotta be a tough thing, but I mean, that's such a cool thing. You're able to kind of turn those experiences into a music career and a professional career that you're doing also to just help other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard because there's a lot of kids who come from divorced families, and some are lucky. Some parents are actually civil with each other, and it actually is normal or semi-healthy. But I want like the example of the exact contrary of that. So as I said earlier, like I want people to be able to confide in this and be like, hey, that kid came from a very similar background to what I did, and he turned out all right. Like, I'll be okay. Just kind of giving that like light of optimism that I wish I had, but I found eventually through music, thank God. But, just for those who are going through something similar, who need something or someone or a song to listen to get them out of the funk they're in, that's what I want to provide.
That's an awesome, and I guess that's kind of your vision of success, is really being that thing, being that music, being that relief for some people who might be going through, like you said, the same exact thing you went through. Yeah,
absolutely. It's not easy. It's not at all. But it shapes who you are as a person, which is I'm thankful for it in itself. I really am.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh crap! I just literally lost my train of thought.
No, don't worry about it.
It's tough to keep your train of thought sometimes as the interviewer when you have 15 different things going on here to shoot off in a conversation.
Totally, and I'm not really making this easy on you either. So
trust me, I've had a lot worse. This is a fun conversation. I just call my place.
Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it, man. It makes two of us.
That's sweet.
Actually, first interview, to be honest with you, about talking about any of this. So it's really cool.
Oh, really? Is it first interview just ever like going this deep, I guess?
Well, so I never really had any music out before, so to like talk about everything, like where I started, like my DJ moniker, my production skill, like I've never really went in depth about this aside from like friends or my management or anybody. Just like having a one-on-one and really diving into some of this is my actual first time. So thank you.
Well, thank you as well. So I kind of want to touch on that a little bit in terms of, you mentioned not getting into now recording music, and with electronic and with EDM, it's so crazy. I think it's a genre where it's the difference between live and recorded music sometimes is really huge. You have to be not only when you record music, have great songs, but then also be able to translate those well to the live aspect as well. Now that you're getting into recording music, how are you kind of balancing that?
It's funny. I haven't played under Loki yet, so I'm actually waiting to debut it. But I was actually having this conversation with a buddy of mine who does my marketing, and we were just talking about how am I going to portray Loki at my first performance. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of my music when I was DJing, before Marshmello and all those other artists, I would play bass house, but it'd be like kind of chill bass house, more melodic. And I can't really like let go of that because I love aggressive music, don't get me wrong, but I also love melodic music. So it's like when I have this first performance, it's going to be kind of both these, melodic angel here and the bass devil right here kind of like fighting over each other. Like, okay, we're going to transition to like more chill or, I'm going to go into like 150 rhythm. Like, I don't know yet, but I can tell you it's going to be an interesting combination of both of them. But I agree. I think, being able to translate what you've created in the studio in front of a crowd is definitely difficult. And obviously as you grow as an artist, the landscape's ever changing and some of your OG fans will be like, oh, why are you playing rhythm now? Like Marshmello just did like a collaboration with Sudden Death. And some of his fans were like, why are you doing this? Like, you're pop. But like, I just, his roots are rhythm. So I think kind of having a variety, and playing a variety and producing a variety, like there shouldn't be just like one straight and narrow with production at least. And same with performance. Like, you should be able to do whatever you want as long as you're not copying or it doesn't really screw up. Explore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great mindset to have with it because in your genre you can sometimes switch it up so much from show to show and like you said, have it kind of the different like people on your shoulders, whether you go chill or more aggressive. It's just which direction you want to take in any given night. Yeah,
and obviously you have to read a crowd. You can't, you can set prep, which I do that, but if like the crowd's not vibing with it, then there's no reason to just like keep doing what you're doing. You got to change it up a little bit.
Exactly, you got to be able to read the audience and give them what they want. Give the people what they want. They spent their money. They want a good show, however they want it.
And it's hard. Some artists just like, and that's like the breaking point between like an artist who knows how to do that and doesn't. Like, that can actually make or break your career almost in a sense. Like you being able to have that skill set definitely puts you further in front of other artists who don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. One artist that comes to mind, actually two artists, but the one that I've seen a couple times, and the reason I always will go back to see him no matter when he's always in my town, is Logic. They're hip hop artists.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've ever seen him live, he always tells jokes. He always does little rap improvisations in between each song, and even though he might be playing some of the same material from year to year on tour, he does it in a different way and provides you with a good show that every time I see him, I'm entertained.
I feel like that makes it more personal though, right? It's like, it's not the same thing where it's like cut and copy. It's like, like you said, it's like a variation of the same thing, but like I think it's more personalized, and I think that's more memorable than just like, seeing the same concert in your hometown and seeing it in LA and being the same exact thing, because I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think Logic's a great artist though. He's so talented. It's incredible.
Yeah, he's done a lot of different things. He's a guy who just did a song with Marshmello. I guess like last year he did the one every day. Another artist who I think of when I think of, doing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, all good. It cut out after you said guy.
Okay, yeah. One other guy I think about when I think about artists who do a lot of different things is Ed Sheeran. I've seen on Instagram. I've seen him in show, and it's like at the end of each show he puts on a jersey from like the Philadelphia Eagles when he's in Philly, or like
that's awesome.
Manchester United when he's in Manchester, England. Just kind of like give each little show their own little thing.
Totally, that's cool though. I like that. That's really cool. But
Yeah,
again, so it's personal, you know, like it's not the same thing.
yeah,
You got to do
giving
that.
it that.
If you want to differentiate yourself, you got to do something that's more personal, at least, you know, whether it be through your live performances or your actual brand identity. Like you just got to do something that's going to make you stand out a little bit more, make people like resonate with you, and just do that. Sharon, awesome, by the way. You have good taste in artists.
Well, thank you. So another thing I wanted to ask about, this is something where I lost my train of thought earlier. As an artist and deciding to do this music, you just talked about you did it in college, and now you're doing it even though you have a professional career. For you, was there a specific moment, or was it just a natural progression for you to just decide to do music, always kind of pursue it as somewhat of a career, and recording it and was there a specific moment where
so to specify, like to actually produce or to just a DJ?
I think to actually like produce and really kind of start to take it seriously, maybe even make your own stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, so the whole reason why I started DJing was because I saw Dylan Francis at Hard Summer, I think it was 2012 or 2013, and I was just like obsessed. Still love him to this day, one of my favorite artists, but I was like, okay, I want to do this just for fun. So I went and picked up a tractor board, screwed around, tried making mashups. Like I think I have mashups from like 2013 still on YouTube somewhere in the depths of YouTube. I'll have to find. And I was like, okay, well, these aren't good by any means, but like they flow, they transition halfway decent, I think. So like I was like, okay. Then I bought CDJ 1000s, DJM 600, just really basic stuff off Craigslist. And I just kept doing that. I went to college, and I was like the first DJ, quote unquote, at University of Arizona to start playing live. Because a lot of what the parties were was just like plug in your aux cord, right? And there's no DJ. So after like people were like actually like vibing to what I was playing, and like, there was a crowd, and when I performed, I said, okay, well, I'll keep doing this. Eventually that went into me going to production school. And I went to production school just because, I always wanted to learn how to produce music. I'm always very good with my ear. When I was younger, I could come home, like after a wedding, for example. My mom told me a story. She's like, oh, you came home from a wedding and you played the wedding theme song by ear. So it was just like, there's always been that sense of music for me in my life, but I wanted to go tap into just a little bit, just to see what was there. You never know what you're going to find. I found what I love. So I'm thankful I did go to production school and I stuck with it. But I think, just having that moment of me playing in front of people and actually them like connecting with it and feeling it, like even if one person's having a great time and vibing with me, like that's all I ask for. I think just that moment of having people enjoying what I was doing was what made me, keep going.
Yeah, like you said, the impact in the live shows, or like you mentioned earlier, the impact of what your recorded music can have. That's the great thing about music, is that it has those impacts on people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's what I'm here for. A lot of people there's not everybody, but some people are in for the money, some people aren't. Like, I'm just here just because this is what I love to do. Like, there's nothing more that I want in life than to be on a stage playing for 1,000 people and them all like being tuned in and enjoying it. Like, that's literally heaven for me.
Yeah, exactly. You go on stage, hundreds of people are looking at you. What do? You play music. Some people would freeze like me, but you're able to put that all together.
Well, it's from practice. I've had my fair share of screw ups. Don't get me wrong. But also just being able to, like I said, share the stage with big artists. That was kind of half the reason why I went to production school too. Like, I played with Knife Party before I decided to go to production school, so that was a cool experience in itself.
Definitely. So, I just kind of want to go back to, you have some stuff coming out, like you have that on the 22nd, and you have your EP coming up in March and April. Just how are you feeling, I guess, heading into these releases and just heading into 2019?
It's really good. I'm really happy with how this music's coming out. I've met a lot of really incredible artists along the way. I'm thankful I get to feature them on my music. So there's the Spanish song coming out, I believe in May. EP I'm very excited for. It brings me back to my house roots. 128, 124. I was producing more in like the 116 range, so I was a little bit more excited to shift back to like what I'm familiar with. But I'm excited for the 222 release. I think it's going to be a blend of what I love. It's going to be a blend of me sampling live instruments. I have a very incredible vocalist on there. I'm excited for her to be on that as well. So I think really hoping that if it turns out just like Ain't Coming Back, I think it'll be a really strong push into the EP release.
I mean, I certainly love that track. I'm looking forward to this one. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this interview, man. It was probably one of the more fun ones I've ever done, if I'm being honest.
No, dude, I appreciate that. I'm glad, for my first interview, I enjoyed it. I'm glad you had a good time, too. So we'll have to for sure do this again.
Again, a big thank you to Low-Key for coming onto the podcast. Remember, go down in the description. Check out all of the links that I have down there for him with his new track coming out. Listen to his old one. Follow him on his social medias. Check out his SoundCloud. All of that great stuff. Links down in the description, no matter what platform you're listening on, to check out some of Low-Key's stuff. And with that, that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Had a great time talking with Low-Key. Remember, check this podcast out on SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can find this, as well as the Jackson Neill Sports and Music podcast published throughout the week. Also, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JacksonNeill20. Links to those social medias are down in the description. And for the first time ever, go on those social medias because there's a little bit of a bonus content. Yes, some bonus content on my social medias from this interview with Low-Key. Had a little bit extra of a conversation with him and want to share that little bit of bonus content with you guys. So follow me on Instagram or Twitter at JacksonNeill20. You'll find that bonus content there. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you all next time.